So I guess going through school, especially back in the time period that I did, to be a carpenter was just not a thing that was, made available to women
Yeah.
or girls of any age or anything like that. And so I was sort of raised in a small country town, so that kind of even personified it a little bit more. And, because you've got some very old values, in those smaller country towns, more traditional.
Yeah.
And certainly, in a building game, it's a non-traditional kind of role for females to get into. So, when I was very young at school and stuff, I always wanted to be one of two things. One was, a carpenter, because I had influences around me from friends and relatives that were in the building game. And the other one was to be a police officer. Now, unfortunately, being female, I couldn't entertain the idea of being a carpenter or a joiner. And to be a police officer, I needed to be back then quite a bit taller than I am. So I missed out on both of them, quite frankly. And I ended up, by pure chance, joining the prison service. It was just, one of those sort of chance meetings where I met this guy who was head of probation and parole in New South Wales, who happened to be the uncle of my then partner. And he said to me, why don't you come join the prison service, So that's kind of where I started my working life or career life, was in the prison service. And so I did that for a number of years, and then my partner decided that they wanted to move to Queensland to be with family. And so subsequently I left the service in New South Wales and went to Queensland. And I think I was there for about maybe a couple of weeks. And I saw an advertisement, because I was job hunting, and I saw an advertisement for apprentices with Queensland Master Builders. Luckily for me, I could have had, at that point in time, they were trying to get women into non-traditional trades, which I didn't know. It was just by pure chance that I rung up this ad, and they were like, they couldn't get me in the door quick enough. And I saw the ad on the Saturday, and by the Monday afternoon following, I had an apprenticeship with Queensland Master Builders as a carpenter and joiner. So, I was elated, of course, because that was something I'd wanted to do my entire life, but just never had the opportunity to. So I kind of started a bit later than most apprentices would start, these days, around the age of, anywhere from 16 to 20. And so I started a bit later than that. And yeah, that's kind of how I rolled into that kind of carpenter and joiner role. And I did an apprenticeship for, obviously I think they finished me up early. I managed to finish my apprenticeship earlier than the required 4 years, and then went on to supervise sites for Queensland Master Builders, building lots of social housing complexes and stuff like that. It wasn't too bad for me, but, it was just as difficult for, the boys or the men that were on site that weren't used to having to now have to accommodate for a female. And I think, it makes it hard too, because I can remember clearly that I had to, while everybody was friendly, I had to prove myself, probably 5 times more than a bloke ever did,
Yeah.
I had to be quicker, I had to be faster, I had to be more accurate, that kind of stuff. So I had to really push myself to prove myself. And that was unfair, but it was the way it was at the time. And certainly you wouldn't tolerate that now. I think you just had to hold your own, and you just had to show people that I can lift that 60 kilo rafter. That's not a drama. I can, plan that. I can build that. I can stand that wall up. I can climb that roof. I can pitch that rafter. I think, you really had to just do your job and let the work speak for itself. And eventually people came round. I made some incredibly good friends out of people that weren't allies when I started, that believed, and they did believe this, that women belonged in the kitchen and pregnant. Absolutely, and not on the tools, So, yeah, I think it was just about perseverance, hey? It was just about showing people through your actions what you were capable of doing. And I think, that certainly opened the doors. Some people say, oh, you created the space for other women to come behind you. Well, I think they create their own journey. I think I've just probably exposed people to there is no difference. People can lobby government for, I'm not just talking about funding, but for, putting messages out there and creating, organisations that support women in these non-traditional type areas or support people that are, there's lots and lots of organisations out there. Whereas I go, well, okay, what could Program do? So Program do a lot of stuff internally. There's no doubt about that. They support their staff, there's all these types of working groups or groups, to help kind of improve the acceptance and diversity in the workplace and all that. It's no good just knowing that we're programmed and advertising an electrician's job. So what we need to do is go out into the community and actually educate all people, but predominantly females, that it's okay to come and work with us as Sparky. We'll give you a job, we'll give you what you need to become an electrician. And in this day and age, there's lots of support around you. I think we need to actually go out into the community and do a bit more than what we're doing just internally if we want to help, bring women into those non-traditional fields within Programmed even. Oh, I think there's two different things there. So starting your career in a trade, make sure it's what you want. Definitely make sure it's what you want, because as modern as things have become and as much policy and procedure and legislation that's been put around to protect women, there is still that element of bias in the community. And, you need to have resilience to be able to deal with that. And, it isn't acceptable if it is still there. And they certainly, if they, expose themselves to you about that, it's not acceptable. And you need to be confident that people like Programmed are going to support you if something like that does happen to you. But, be resilient, make sure it's what you want and kick on with it, because seriously, there is nothing better for me than being able to build something and stand back and go, oh, I did that, I did that, that kind of stuff. So the rewards are, inevitable. And then within the trade, there is room to grow. I was supervising building sites within 12 months of finishing my apprenticeship, so, if you apply, it's like everything. If you apply yourself and people can see that you're good at what you do, you don't have to put your hand up. They'll come to you, they'll come to you, let your work do the talking for you, basically. But yeah, I think there's always room to prove. And and even if I think about Program, so Program definitely, they have all these available kind of trade avenues for people, and including women, to get into. But it doesn't mean you have to be the chippy that turns up on site and constructs, the frame for the house every day. Because when you look outside of that, and open your eyes up, there's so many more avenues that you can use your skill sets and, transferable skill sets to get into, leadership type roles. That's clearly evident. I think what we just have to do, all of us, is just understand what is that avenue and where is it I want to go, to be able to then open your eyes and follow that. So I think, starting out, definitely be resilient and remember that there are people around you that will support you when you come across those, now anomalies. But certainly if you want to kind of expand on that, you need to decide where it is you want to go and look outside of your, box and, have a look a little bit broader. Don't ever be afraid either, is the advice I'd give them, to ask as many questions as you can, because no question, that old adage about no question is a stupid question, it is completely true. People hopefully will be honest with you and provide you with the answers that you need, but also look for a good mentor. I found through my career, probably more so in justice, that over the time, I really looked for good mentors to be able to, I always knew, my goal in prison was always to run my own prison one day. I set that goal pretty early, but then I had to work out, how do I achieve to get that? What do I need to do to get that? Not only from the, the working side of things, but also that, to run your own prison, you need to be a leader. So then what kind of leader am I going to be? What kind of leader do I want to be? And quite often people pick a mentor that is probably not a really good leader, especially don't have people skills, those really good people skills. I remember one leader saying to me one day, Karen, if you want to be a good leader, you get more bees with honey. So I'm like, okay, more bees with honey. that means I have to be better at what I do. I have to be kinder at what I do. You know, I have to be, yes, I can be assertive and authoritarian if I need to be, but I still do that with kindness, you know, that kind of stuff, because that's what he means, you know. You'll get more people that want to follow you. You'll get more people that want to work with you, you know, that kind of stuff. So I think get a really good mentor around you throughout your career, and don't just think that, you know, your boss, your direct boss is that mentor. It may not be that person, you know.
Exactly.
It may be somebody on the peripheral for you, maybe somebody outside the organisation, you know, that you work within. So I think, yeah, those few things I think is important for somebody starting out in a career of any description, really.